Hello and welcome to News Central Now. I am Dakbo Adigboye. The top stories at this hour. Nigerian government extends search for fleeing 4,000 inmates to IDP camps. House of Representatives Committee on Defense begins investigative hearing on Okwama killings. Dar el Salam residents recount experience during deadly floods. Details in a moment. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has arrived in Riyadh, the Saudi Arabian capital, on Friday to participate in the 2024 Special World Economic Forum on Global Collaboration, Growth and Energy for Development. Over 1,000 leaders from business, government and the academia from more than 90 countries are expected to attend the high-level forum in Riyadh, which is scheduled for Saturday and Sunday. Talks would center around actions taken since the inaugural Growth Summit held in Geneva, Switzerland in 2023. Let's also tell you that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has appointed Dr. Innocent Barrico as the Director General of the National Environmental Standards and Regulation Enforcement Agency. He also appointed Ebitimi Angbere as the Managing Director and CEO of the Niger Delta River Basin Development Authority. The presidency announced the appointments on Friday in a statement signed by Tinubu's Special Advisor on Media and Publicity, Ajuri Nganane. Barrico succeeds Professor Aliyu Jauro, who former President Muhammadu Buhari first appointed in February 2019. Angbere succeeds Dr. Adeni Aremu, who Buhari first appointed in January 2017. Aremu was reappointed for another 4-year tenure in January 2021. Now, let's also tell you that the Nigerian Correctional Service has stepped up efforts to track down and recapture escaped inmates of the Suleja Medium Security Custodial Center in Niger State. The Minister of Interior Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo said the government also would relocate some correctional centers to create better infrastructure and security. He made the pledge when he visited the Niger Custodial Center, where about 119 inmates escaped following a brainstorm that damaged the facility on Wednesday. The minister also said it was imperative to relocate some of the correctional centers to a conducive environment. Now joining me on the news is Ogu Ogechi, Principal Partner, Benita Law Firm, an independent resource person on security and justice issues. Now, she joins me from Abuja. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, now let's start off with this. What does the recent jailbreaks across the country, which of course Nigeria's witnessed in recent times, reflect of the quality of our correctional centers?
Okay, although the network is really poor, I couldn't get you quite well, but I think you were talking about the infrastructure of our correctional centers. And, that's, there's nothing much again to say because we have seen the evidence, though we know that this might not be the situation in all the correctional centers across the Federation, but there are actually correctional centers that are in bad state in terms of wear and tear because of long period they were built, most of them ranging up to 80 years, 70 years. So this is a source of concern to everybody, and I am glad to hear that the minister is already making moves to relocate some of these inmates from some of these dilapidated correctional centers to a more recent ones that are stronger, but they were praying also that this wouldn't become a source of challenge in terms of continuation of trials of some of the inmates. So it is a good development, and we are looking forward and beyond what has happened at Suleja, and hoping that a mapping will be done, or if there has been a mapping done regarding the integrity of these infrastructures, especially those that are in remote areas that are not in urban centers, so that immediate action will be taken to rehabilitate them and quickly too that will be for the good of every one of us.
Now, according to the Interior Minister in his words, this was a facility that was built to house about 250 inmates. But the recent we had was 499 inmates, which leads us to what we have been talking about, overcrowding in our correctional centers. Now, these are the exact words of the minister. Now, does this reflect, or does the judiciary and the executive have some sort of contribution in the overcrowded state of these correctional centers? The judiciary, in terms of how they speed up, processes in court, and also the executive, particularly on the arm of the governors, who many of them are scared to sign, well, I say the capital punishment, on some of the offenders.
Yeah, actually, whatever you see happening in terms of high number of persons awaiting trial in correctional centers and the congestion of these facilities, it is not, you can never lay blame on any single agency of the criminal justice system. So the effect is an effect of activities of almost all the agencies. The agencies function as a chain, and effect of what is happening in one agency will get into the next agency. So there is no perfect agency of the criminal justice system. What I mean by this is that you can never be good as the police and the correctional center is bad and you get good results. So for us to have good correctional system, there must be functionality, effectiveness, and efficiency of all the agencies of the criminal justice system. Now, looking at the executive, of course, the executive takes care of issues of provision of the resources and the rest of them for management of correction, and they are actually in charge of the arresting agencies, the police, the police and other agencies that have the responsibility of enforcing our laws. And if these agencies are not doing the needful and complying with our laws in terms of a size of discretion in determining who goes into custody or not, then you can say that the executive is contributing to this. Now, when you get to the judiciary, if the courts are not sitting, or the courts have refused or are reluctant and holding back, holding on to what was in the past without looking at the new laws we have in terms of management of corrections, then they are equally contributing. But the point is that generally, we have a challenge, and every agency has its own little way of contributing to the issues of congestion. And what we have always preached is that there should be collaboration, there should be cooperation between all the agencies, and there should be effectiveness. And most importantly, we should implement our laws. If we start from there, then we will go far, because the laws, everything that we are seeing now, have been captured by the Nigerian Correctional Service Act of 2019 in terms of the kind of infrastructure that where buildings that can be designated custodial center, where we can keep persons. And in terms of security, when you look at Section 28, the kind of security that should be provided for different classes of correctional centers, what we really need is to connect. There should be a connection between the laws and what is happening in practice. And until we are able to achieve that, we will still be having problems. And not only beyond the executive, beyond the judiciary, beyond even the correctional service, as a people, we are all supposed to contribute in one way or the other to build the kind of correctional system, and the discussion that should go beyond, like what has happened now, and records that we have of what happened in the past in terms of the different jailbreaks. And this one is quite different now. Nobody attacked, but nature took its own course, and we are in this dilemma. But the point is, how have we managed even cases of escape from custodial centers.
I mean, talking about cases of escape, for instance, how much of a risk factor will we say that these fleeing inmates are to the communities around? And also, do you think that the security agencies have the capacity to actually locate all of this, will I say, running inmates?
Yeah, the answer is yes or no. Number one is a huge risk. I just looked at the records of the past jail breaks and even had a case where somebody escaped. I think it's from Edo State. I had to go into the community to kill one of the witnesses, somebody that witnessed against him in court. So this is, once you hear this, you know there's a challenge, because the fear of what happens to this particular person could actually deter other likely, witnesses to offend in cases, in future, to say they are not coming to speak because their life might be in danger rather. Now, looking beyond that, you now see that there are several other issues regarding, security. How do we manage this? There's a provision by correctional service, a mechanism they have put in place, which I think is very commendable in terms of relocating, bringing back persons that have escaped from custodial center. They have a mechanism, they have the bio of these people, and they have it on their portal where they can show this to all the people to say, be on the lookout of for these persons. But the point is that we are afraid that many people are not even aware of this portal. So that calls for need for all of us to equally engage further, especially the correctional center. Let the people know that you have this portal. And as much as possible, timeously update details, upload details of escapees, on this particular platform, so that people will start looking out for these escapees, in good time before they mix up with the entire society. And that calls to attention. Another big issue, we deal with security matters in this country as if they are exclusive issues. No, they mix up with other issues in society, issues of, social issues, issues of economy, and the rest of them. A good example is shelter. We don't have good documentation in terms of where people live. People live everywhere. People live on the hills. People, even in Abuja here, you can get into remote parts of the city and see people even living in the bush. They will just put something together and live. Nobody has, nobody has the identity of data of these persons. If it had been a system where people are living in proper homes with addresses that you can locate them, they have neighbors, you will now see when there are new entrants in a community. But it's easy as we speak now for people to just disappear because they are moving into a community that there's no control, they don't even have a home, there is no address. So while we are talking about security, we should equally look at the economic and social lives of our people, because all this mixed together to give us the kind of life we desire as a nation. So this is one particular point we feel should be addressed. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much for being on the news with me. Ogu Ogechi, Principal Partner, Benita Law Firm, and independent resource person on security and justice issues, joining from Abuja. Once again, thank you for being on the news.
Thank you.
All right. Now, the National Summit on Justice 2024 has adopted the proposed National Policy on Justice 2024 to 2028, expected to serve as a roadmap for justice sector reforms in the country. The summit, which came to an end in Abuja, adopted several key recommendations proposed by participants, all focused on improving the nation's justice sector.
The general consensus reached by this panel was that the role of the NJC in discharging its responsibility for judicial appointments into the Superior Courts of Record required significant review. There was a concern expressed about the fact that the Chief Justice of Nigeria, who is the chairman of the NJC, is also the chairman of the Federal Judicial Service Commission, which is the body that initially reviews proposals or lists of candidates for appointment into judicial office. The members pointed out the seeming inconsistency between the Chief Justice of Nigeria playing both those roles, as it would appear that he was then recommending candidates to himself, being chairman of both bodies, and being the person who appoints a significant number of the members of both bodies, other than those who are starting.
Let's head to South Africa. April 27th every year, South Africans come together to celebrate Freedom Day, a day set aside to celebrate independence from white supremacy and slavery that lasted centuries. Now, Freedom Day 2024 marks the 30th anniversary of South Africa's democratic dispensation and commemorates the nation's first democratic election on the 27th of April 1994. Celebrated under the theme 30 Years of Democracy, Partnership and Growth, this year's Freedom Month celebration hold a special significance as they also coincide with the 28th anniversary of the enactment of the South African Constitution as the supreme law of the land. Now, Sipho Sefe, an independent analyst, joins me for more on this from Gauteng, South Africa. Thank you for your time, Sipho. Now, great. In your opinion, how would you describe the significance of Freedom Day in South Africa and its impact on the country's history?
Because it brought an end to British colonial rule and apartheid. You need to understand that South Africans had been under the yoke of colonialism for over 300 years. So for the first time, South Africans of African descent felt that they have an opportunity to decide their fate, with a fate that has always been decided by largely the colonial masters. So it is significant in that. It's also significant at the continental level, because South Africa was the last country to achieve political independence. So it reflected the dream of the founding fathers of the African Organization for African Unity, now the AU, who also spent no effort to make sure that the rest of the continent becomes free from the yoke of colonialism. But our freedoms were largely political. They were not economic. So in as much as there is a sense of celebration on the political front, in a sense that the South Africans can now vote, including people who were excluded. But on the economic front, we still find ourselves under the same conditions that we inherited from apartheid.
I would like you to expatiate more on the economic front. You said on the political space, there's the freedom there, but economically, the country is still not free. Would you like to tell us more with specifics?
Well, what we did, we adopted a constitution that is a liberal constitution. And the problem with liberal constitution is that they assume that everybody starts from the same space. Hence, they talk about equality, not equity. What we should have done as South Africans was also to find a mechanism that will address the historical injustices that occurred, especially as far as the social and economic disintegration of the Black life. So post-1994, we found ourselves reproducing the same inequalities. And some people argue that for the last 30 years, we've seen more escalation of racial disparities and also social hierarchies that were created by both apartheid and colonialism. So in as much as we are celebrating, we must also be looking at the major missteps that we made. First, we adopted everything that was there in the system. And if you take over a system and all you do, you replace it with black faces, you don't change that system. So what is underwritten as conditions and the sustenance of racial disparities remains in the system. So this is why you find that there's been more reproduction of the same inequalities to an extent that South Africa right now is now the global poster child of inequality. So we had failed dismally in that regard. Yet, yes, you have some people who have become modern day elites. Those were people who were microwaved into becoming millionaires by the people who oppressed us. And they have found comfort in the sense that they've been co-opted and they now behave as the new oppressors of the formerly oppressed.
I mean, I'm still going to stay with you on this, but according to a particular survey I'm looking at right now on the npr.org, it says that there were about 27,494 killings in South Africa in the year to February, that's 2023, compared, with what it was in terms of the homicide rate, about 45%, increase. Now, my question is this. Talking about the rate of violence in South Africa, what do you think, is responsible for this? I mean, some ratings would even say South Africa in terms of violence or risk factor is one of the violent, if not the most violent place, on the African continent. So my question is this, what do you think is responsible for that? And how do you think a day like this would sort of impact on the country to trend more towards the place of peace as against this kind of ratings?
Well, first, when people are in the conditions of hopelessness and in the conditions of degrading poverty, what you are creating is an environment where crime can manifest and thrive. So the failure by the new dispensation to ensure that there's economic growth, to ensure that the people are employed, has led to where the crime levels are so high because everybody is actually desperate to eke a living. So part of the crisis that we face is that sense of poverty that is grinding. It's unemployment that is exorbitant. It's also a sense of hopelessness. So what you find is that people will then resort to other measures other than what you may call proper gainful employment measures that comes with when one has a job. So the crisis we have in South Africa is a triple type of crisis. Is inequality, which itself is racial. It's poverty, which has deepened, which also has a color that is black. It's also the notion of unemployment, which affects largely African people. So a combination of that creates almost a scenario where the convergence of all these factors leads to people becoming desperate. And hence we've become the capital murder of the world.
All right. Now, are there any disparities in the experiences of different groups of ordinary citizens in the country, which, of course, when it comes to benefiting from the ideals of freedom and democracy celebrated on Freedom Day?
Well, Africans are by and large concentrated in conditions of squalor. And if you look at anywhere in the world where you find condition of squalor, you also find an element of violence. When it comes to also employment, Africans are in the main the ones who are unemployed and unemployable, whereas white people in terms of employment, their numbers are very low. They are actually below 10. When you talk about Africans, you're talking about more than 50% of people who should be in jobs being almost unemployed and unemployable. So that the post-1994 scenario still reflects the same architect of apartheid, and hence the sense of desperation and the sense of hopelessness.
How do you think the government and civil society can actually work together to ensure that the celebration of Freedom Day continues to have a positive impact on the lives of ordinary citizens in South Africa?
We have two types of, when you talk about civil society, you have ordinary mass organization by African people, but you also have groupings that masquerade themselves as custodians and defenders of democracy. These are largely the think tanks that have a lot of money and are sponsored from outside. These have actually also become part of the problem because what they do, they spend more time defending white interest and also sustaining white hegemony and white supremacy. So what is going to be required for us to change this is nothing short of a revolution that will require mass mobilization of African people to say this dispensation has not worked for you, and for them to find a way in which they vote for parties that will speak a language that says the past policies have not worked. What we need is something radical in uprooting the architecture of apartheid and also making sure that the Black people assume primacy in terms of policies of government, and to make sure that we do not shy in talking about the need to redress the past inequalities that are racial. But what we've tried to do, we try to be accommodative. We talked about reconciliation, but that reconciliation meant simply Black people being told to reconcile with the poverty and white people to reconcile with their wealth. And that is a recipe for disaster.
All right. Thank you so much for being on the news with me, Sipo, and congratulations to South Africa.
Thank you very much.
All right. We'll go on a quick break. When we return, we have more stories. Stay with us. The House of Representatives Committee on Defense has commenced its investigative hearing into the killing of 17 military personnel and the wanton destruction of Okwama community of Ewu Robo Kingdom in the Ueli South local government area of Delta State, South Nigeria. News Central's Austin Azu completes the report.
The first point of call for the Representatives Committee was the Delta State Government House Asaba to intimate the state governor of their mission.
It is in the light of this unfortunate event that the House of Representatives at its plenary on March 19 debated a motion on the matter and resolved that this committee should investigate the incident and report back to the House for further legislative actions. This is why we are here in Delta State, His Excellency.
Therefore, Nigeria expects a lot from this committee. I have full confidence that this committee will do justice. We believe in justice.
Meanwhile, the investigative hearing is bid to hold at the Government House annexed Ejeba in Warri South local government area of the state. Not many turned up physically, probably due to fear of being arrested by the military. Those who came, including indigents of Okwama community and other interested groups, presented copies of memoranda to the committee. Speaking with journalists, the chairman of the committee assured that the committee would be fair and just in its assignment to the country. Speaking on why the committee had not visited Okwama for on-the-spot assessment of the aftermaths, the committee chairman said they needed to be fully armed with all relevant information. He said the committee would continue to receive petitions and presentations from members of the public, particularly residents of Okwama, until next week Friday in its bid to find the true causes of the incidents that led to the murder of the soldiers.
And the window is open for a week, so we're still expecting a lot more memoranda from them. We've assured you all, we've assured Mr. Governor that we have the House of Representatives full backing to ensure that this matter is reviewed both sides and come to a logical conclusion.
Recall that on March 14, 17 soldiers were ambushed and killed around the riverbank of Okwama community in Ueli South local government area of Delta State. The military, in a reprisal attack, razed down the community with reports of some civilians killed. In Warri, Delta State, for News Central, Austin Azu.
Away from that, motorists in Nigeria's capital Abuja have expressed doubt over claims by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited to have resolved the logistic challenges responsible for the persistent fuel scarcity within the capital. Many of them say the scarcity is becoming unbearable as they have to spend long hours in queues despite paying higher for the product. News Central's Eden Joseph tells us more.
It's been 5 days now since the fuel queues resurfaced in Nigeria's capital Abuja, and this is despite assurances by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited that the logistical challenges which is responsible for the scarcity has been resolved.
Some motorists have had to queue for hours in the few petrol stations that have fuel to sell, lamenting the persistent hardship that they face.
From that signpost, you can see the short distance to this place, spending 3.5 hours. I don't understand.
I can see my body, man. I'm sweating. I've been in this queue for say 2 hours now, so it's been a while.
For the past 2 days now, I've been looking for where to get this fuel, and this is one of the filling stations that I'm even hoping, if I told it to come to pass, that I'm going to get fuel.
Now I stays in Kubwa. My coming to the town this morning to the office, I know what people were passing through along the road, and I don't see no reason why, in my own country, something that I have, I will be passing through this kind of stress.
With several productive hours wasted in queues just to get petrol, Nigerians have expressed doubt over claims that the challenge responsible for the scarcity has been resolved. They urged the NNPC to come out clean.
The government know what it takes to do for fuel to be available, and they come up with, say, logistic problem. Where is the logistic problem coming from? Is it from the independent marketers or from the NNPC, or where they are?
We've known over the years that they're not really reliable in terms of giving the citizens what they should know. So there's always propaganda, there's always this notion that we can deceive the citizens and nothing is going to happen.
Before you make statement that, be sure of what you are saying, because the people you are talking to, they are not fools. They are human beings like you. We voted for you to do the right thing, not to do the wrong things. As far as I'm concerned, look at Nigeria. Look at the way people are suffering.
Nigerians have called for an end to the recurring scarcity of petrol. They say the NNPC must live up to its responsibilities. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idonk Joseph.
The Lagos State Environmental Protection Agency temporarily shut down at least 5 churches and 19 hotels over noise pollution between March 23rd and April 26th. Now, no fewer than 4 markets and shopping complexes were also shut down over noise pollution and other environmental infractions. A post shared by the State Commissioner for the Environment and Water Resources, that's Tokunbo Wahab, on his X account on Friday, said various establishments, including churches, bars, and hotels in areas like Ifako-Ijayi, Abule Egba, Alagbado Command, Abeson Estate, and Dokmemu were sealed due to noise pollution. On World Malaria Day, health experts in Maiduguri, Borno State urged the government to improve Nigeria's vaccine production. They highlighted the burden of preventable diseases and the need for domestic solutions, especially for malaria and future health threats. Now, News Central's Umaru Kelawa tells us more.
Global health landscape, robust domestic vaccine production is no longer a luxury, but a necessity for Nigeria. It is crucial to combat existing threats like malaria and prepare for future outbreaks. Experts say Nigeria has the potential to be a vaccine leader, but needs a strong strategy to address logistical, financial, and infrastructure challenges.
Despite our resources, despite the fact that Nigeria's economy is #1 in Africa, but we don't produce any vaccines in Nigeria. As a matter of fact, even the drugs that we use in Nigeria, over 70% are being imported from India. It's a wake-up call, this COVID that has done to us, is for Nigeria to re-strategize and look at vaccine production earnestly.
Recognizing the critical role of vaccines in disease prevention, experts emphasize the need for self-reliance.
When we start producing these vaccines, especially malaria vaccine in Nigeria, then you will see the difference. We will stop seeing the huge number of our children who are dying every week, up to 4,000 every week, as a result of malaria.
Doctors say strengthening primary health care centers can also address many medical issues.
We must recognize that marginalized communities bear a disproportionate burden of this disease, and they continue to face barriers to essential interventions, including lack of access to insecticide-treated bed-nets, lack of adequate diagnostic testing, and anti-malaria treatment, especially in resource-constrained settings.
Experts say enhancing the capacity of the first healthcare contact, the primary health center, will help in addressing most medical ills. Consistent awareness campaign on major diseases like malaria through the use of mosquito nets, improved hygiene, is also said to proactively ensure healthy lifestyle. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umar Kirawa.
In an effort to achieve zero hunger and improve food security, experts have called on government to assess Nigeria's current intellectual property law and explore avenues to adapting them to achieve self-sufficiency in food production. This was during a session to mark the World Intellectual Property Day in the nation's capital, Abuja. Now, Joshua Imarayi tells us more.
It was a gathering of stakeholders and food security experts as they convened to commemorate the World Intellectual Property Day in the nation's capital, Abuja. Participants called for a change in strategy to achieve zero hunger nationwide.
To achieve zero hunger, therefore, requires a change in strategy. My humble recommendation here is to demand that the international community should rethink the issue of access to patented but desirous technologies and innovative solutions that can increase productivity of smallholder farmers by providing funds to pay for these patented technologies and making them available for uninhibited use by our farmers.
They emphasized on the need to achieve food security, urging government to change the strategy to achieve food sufficiency.
The key dimensions of food security that are of interest are mainly the issue of availability, accessibility, affordability, the right nutritious content, and all these happening on a sustainable basis. To achieve this, there is great need to assist farmers and other value chain actors within the agricultural land ecosystem with innovations that are affordable and accessible to increase their productivity.
Some of them commended government's efforts in working towards making food available for all.
I know that the government has placed a big priority on addressing food security as a central component of this renewed hope agenda, and it also sits at the core of the UN's collective partnership with respect to the government realizing the SDGs in Nigeria. We're therefore delighted to be able to host this seminar on the occasion of the World IP Day to spotlight the significance of innovation and creativity to the realization of SDG 2 in Nigeria.
Innovation and creativity breeds more when intellectual properties are protected. The protection of this right boosts creators' confidence, gets recognition for properties created, and helps innovators provide better inventions to the world. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarayi.
The news continues in West Africa, where Sierra Leone's Energy Minister Kanja Sesay has resigned over a weeks-long electricity crisis. The same day, the government announced it had paid some of the tens of millions of dollars it owed to energy providers. In his resignation letter on Friday, Sesay said he took full responsibility for the crisis. The Office of the President, Julius Maada Bio, later announced that the Energy Ministry would fall under the direct supervision of the President shortly after Sesay's resignation. The government said in a statement that it had paid $17 million of the $48 million owed to Turkey's core power ship, which provides electricity to the capital Freetown. A spokesperson for the company confirmed the payment and said full electricity supplies had been restored to the capital. Now, police in Benin Republic on Saturday fired tear gas to break up a protest organized by labor unions in the economic capital, Cotonou, over high cost of living. Now, small groups of protesters had gathered at the protest site, which was cordoned off by squads of police who fired tear gas to disperse demonstrators. Protesters chanted the national anthem during the clashes. CSA Benin, one of the country's largest unions, said on X, formerly Twitter, that its leader, Asalme, that's Asamu, had been taken away by police. A union source said a dozen other protesters had been arrested. In East Africa, residents of Tanzania's capital, Dar es Salaam, say the situation was really scary after heavy rains linked to El Nino triggered flooding and landslides, which killed at least 155 persons. Tanzania and other countries in East Africa have been pounded by heavier than usual rainfall during the current rainy season, with several dozen deaths also reported in Kenya. The Prime Minister, Hassim Majaliwa, said more than 200,000 persons have been affected by the disaster in Tanzania, with 155 fatalities and 236 persons injured. He said the devastating effects of the rains were primarily due to environmental degradation, deforestation, unstable farming practices such as slush and burn, agriculture, and unregulated livestock grazing.
Hali inatishia amani kiukweli. Watu wamepata madhara makubwa sana. Mali zao nyingi zimeharibika, mali nyingi zimebebwa za majumba licha ya nyumba ambazo zimetiwa X na serikali, lakini pia maji yamevamia mpaka kwenye nyumba ambazo pia hazihusiki na hizo X.
Now, former U.S. President Donald Trump says he is ready, willing, and able to debate his White House challenger, President Joe Biden, at the New York courthouse where he's been tried. Trump was speaking after Biden earlier Friday told radio host Howard Stern that he is ready to face off Trump. Candidate debates have been an important milestone in U.S. presidential election for decades, helping make or break voters' opinion on the contestants' personal style and demeanor as much as their policy chops.
I just want to say that I've invited Biden to debate. He can do it anytime he wants, including tonight. I'm ready. Here we are. I invited him to the courthouse that he has us tied up in with his administration. This is all being done through Washington. It's all a well-coordinated attack on a political opponent. But I'm here. I'm ready, willing, and able. And if he wants, I'll do it on Monday night, Tuesday night, or Wednesday night. We'll be in Michigan. But we're willing to do it Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, or Friday night on national television. We're ready.
Some Palestinians have been inspecting the damage to their homes and search for belongings amidst the rubble of destroyed buildings in Rafah and the southern Gaza Strip as the conflict between Israel and the militant group Hamas continues.
ضربوا من غير صاروخ تحذير الدار ومن غير أرعبوا الأطفال وأرعبوا المواطنين وأرعبونا وإحنا يا عم بدنا نعيش زي الناس ما هي عايشة بدنا نعيش في حرية إحنا ضد الإشي هذا إحنا بدنا نعيش وبدنا نعيش الحياة زي ما كل العالم عايش الحياة.
تم قصفنا اليوم بدون سابق انذار وبعد 200 يوم من الحرب نناشد كل الشعوب العربية أن تقف معنا ضد الاحتلال ووقف لإطلاق النار.
In sports, Rivers Hoppers will battle 2023 runners-up AS Dunes of Senegal in their opening game of the 2024 edition on May 4th, as per fixtures released on Thursday. The pair will run in the Sahara Conference that will take place at Dakar Arena in Dakar, Senegal from May 4th to 12th. Now, they will be joined by Tunisia's US Monastir APR of Rwanda, as Hoppers players are quite optimistic and are leaving no stones unturned. Point guard Kelvin Amayo, who is also a key player, shared insights into the team's rigorous training regime. The team recently engaged in a friendly game against Hobbs and Red, which they won by 92 to 72 points. And Amayo believes it has been beneficial in their preparation.
Great. I'm happy they got us here early so we could play hard, get in shape, learn the terminologies coaches want us to put in. And yeah, we're in Lagos and we continue to work hard as well. Just like the energy, just really defense, listening, just leading by example. I feel like if we just go hard and have a good concept, we will do very well.
And that's a wrap on the news at this time. But before we go, another look at some of our top stories. We told you that the Nigerian government has extended the search for fleeing 4,000 inmates to IDP camps. The House of Representatives Committee on Defense has begun investigative hearing on Okwama killings. And finally, we also told you that Dar es Salaam residents have been recounting their experience during deadly floods. Don't forget to send in your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. You can also follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live across these platforms: DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Abo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Dakwo at Digboy. Bye for now.